The price of a daughter. My name is Lydia Harris, and for most of my life, my mother taught me one lesson. Love has a price, and I was always the one expected to pay it. If you've ever felt like your worth depended on what you could give, not who you were, this story is for you. And before we begin, if you've ever had to buy your own peace from people who should have protected it, take a second to subscribe. You're not alone in this. The beginning of the debt. Growing up, my mother, Janet, wasn't cruel in obvious ways. She wasn't the kind of mother who yelled constantly or hit me. Her cruelty was quieter, sharper in the way she withheld affection until I did what she wanted. We lived in a small Ohio town, just the two of us after my father left when I was 7. Mom always called it his betrayal, but in her stories, she was always the hero, the victim who fought alone, the mother who sacrificed everything, the woman who deserved admiration and sympathy. At first, I believed her completely. I watched her cry at the kitchen table when bills piled up, and I promised myself I'd grow up fast so I could help. By age 12, I was doing part-time babysitting for neighbors. Every dollar I made went into the same envelope, for the family, Mom said. At 15, when I got my first proper job at a diner, she hugged me and whispered, "You're saving us, sweetheart." But she didn't mean us. She meant her. The bills never seemed to shrink, yet her wardrobe grew, her wine bottles multiplied, and every emergency ended with another excuse. "Gas prices," she'd say. "Groceries are insane. Don't you want your mother to have something nice for once?" And I, desperate for approval, always said yes. The first betrayal. The first time I realized how deep it went was the day I came home from school to find my college savings gone. I'd been accepted to Ohio State, a full partial scholarship, the rest I'd worked years to save for. I'd dreamed of leaving that house, that town, that constant weight of obligation. When I went to check the account that evening, it was empty. Every last dollar withdrawn. I remember confronting her, shaking, heart pounding, voice breaking. "Mom, where's my money?" She didn't even look guilty. She just sighed, flicked her cigarette into the sink, and said, "I needed it. The car broke down, and the rent's due. I'll pay you back, Lydia. Don't make such a big deal." It wasn't just money she took that day. It was trust, the kind that holds a family together. I screamed. I told her I'd earned that money. She told me I was ungrateful. That she'd fed me, clothed me, and sacrificed everything for me, and I couldn't even handle a small setback. By the end of that night, she'd turned it all around. Somehow, I was the villain for caring about my future. I didn't sleep. I cried until the sun came up, realizing that in my mother's world, my worth was measured by how much I could give her. Escape by success. I left 2 weeks later with a duffel bag and $200 borrowed from my best friend's parents. I promised myself one thing: I'd never need anyone again, especially her. College was brutal. I worked full-time, took night classes, and slept in the library more nights than I could count. But every struggle became fuel. Every rejection letter turned into fire. Every time I wanted to give up, I heard her voice. "You'll never make it without me, Lydia." And I swore she'd be wrong. By 27, I had done what she said I couldn't. I graduated top of my class in finance, landed a corporate job, and within 3 years, was promoted to senior analyst. I had my own apartment, bright, high-ceilinged, with glass windows overlooking the city skyline. From the outside, I looked like a success story. From the inside, I was still the little girl trying to earn her mother's love. The return. It started with a phone call. "Lydia? Honey, it's Mom." That voice, soft, practiced, drenched in nostalgia. I hadn't heard it in nearly 5 years. I froze. Then answered. "Hi, Mom." There was a long pause. Then, "I'm so proud of you. I saw your photo on LinkedIn. You're doing so well." That should have made me smile. But it didn't. Because I knew her. Mom didn't call for pride. She called for profit. Within minutes, she told me about her new business idea. A small boutique, a family dream, she called it, and how a little seed money from you could make it happen. When I hesitated, she reminded me of everything she'd done for me. The food, the roof, the years of sacrifice. "Don't you think it's time to give back?" she said. That phrase, "give back," hit like a slap. I'd been giving back my entire life. Still, some part of me, that child who wanted peace, caved. I sent her $5,000, told myself it was charity, not duty. She promised she'd turn it into something beautiful. 3 months later, she called again. "The boutique didn't work out," she said. "But I found a new idea. This time it's foolproof." I hung up mid-sentence. If you've ever been guilted into giving, or learned the hard way that love shouldn't come with receipts, subscribe. Because this next part, it's where everything changes. The breaking point. A year later, I received a call from a debt collector. Apparently, my mother had opened a credit line under my name. My credit score plummeted. I sat in my office staring at the screen, tears spilling silently. This wasn't desperation. This was betrayal, weaponized. When I confronted her, she didn't apologize. She screamed, "You're selfish. You have everything, and I have nothing. You owe me." That day, something inside me snapped. "No, Mom. I don't owe you my future for the mistakes you made with Yo." She hung up on me. And for the first time, I didn't call back. The rise. The next 2 years were all about power, not the cruel kind, but survival disguised as ambition. I rose fast at work, earned promotions, bought a townhouse, and started mentoring other women who'd grown up in chaos. But deep down, the anger remained, hot, coiled, electric. Every deal I closed, every dollar I saved, felt like one more brick in the wall between me and her. I wasn't healing, I was proving. Proving I didn't need her. Proving she'd been wrong. Proving I could outgrow pain by outrunning it. But success without peace is just another form of servitude. And I was still serving her ghost, the voice that said I'd never be enough. The revenge years. There's a certain kind of power that comes from pain, sharp, polished, and addictive. After that final call with my mother, I decided I'd never let anyone use me again. Not my boss. Not my coworkers. And certainly not her. For years, I had been the daughter who begged for love. Now, I would become the woman who commanded respect, even if it meant building walls so high no one could climb them. Becoming untouchable. The next few years blurred into motion, promotions, late nights, glowing screens, and endless meetings. I was unstoppable. By 32, I had my own consulting firm, Harris Advisory Group, specializing in financial restructuring for failing businesses. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent my life rescuing people who couldn't manage money, just like my mother, only now I charged for it. And I was damn good at it. Every client I saved felt like revenge. Every balance sheet I turned from red to black felt like rewriting the past. I was no longer the girl who lost everything to someone else's mistakes. I was the woman who fixed what others broke. People started calling me the Phoenix. They didn't know how literal that nickname was. If you've ever built yourself from ashes, if you've ever said, "never again," and meant it, subscribe. Because this story is about what happens when power becomes protection, and protection becomes a cage. The unexpected encounter. It was at a charity gala in downtown Chicago, one of those glittering events where people wear masks of generosity over faces of ambition. I was a keynote speaker that night, talking about financial literacy for women from disadvantaged backgrounds. I'd built a foundation that provided grants to single mothers trying to rebuild their lives. The irony was delicious. When I walked on stage, applause echoed across the ballroom. Cameras flashed. Somewhere in the crowd, I saw her. My mother. Janet Harris, older now, thinner, wearing a faded floral dress that looked like it belonged to another decade. She stood near the back, her hands clutching a worn handbag, eyes wide as if she'd stumbled into a dream she didn't belong in. For a heartbeat, I forgot how to breathe. I could have stopped my speech. I could have faltered. But I didn't. I smiled wider, steadied my voice, and began. When I was younger, I believed helping others meant giving everything until there was nothing left. But true help begins with boundaries, with knowing your worth. My eyes flicked toward her as I said it. Our gaze met for a single, searing second. She looked away first. It was petty. It was powerful. And it felt good. Too good. The power shift. After the event, I found her waiting by the valet stand. She approached me slowly, like a ghost crossing familiar ground. "Lydia," she said. "You look amazing." I folded my arms. "What are you doing here?" "I read about the event in the paper. I just wanted to see you. I'm proud of you, honey." The word honey landed like an old bruise. Proud? You stole from me. You ruined my credit. You made me feel like love was something I had to buy. Her face crumpled, but I wasn't finished. Now you see me standing here, successful, and suddenly, you remember you have a daughter? She tried to speak, but I cut her off. "You know what's funny, Mom? You always said I'd never make it without you. Looks like I made it in spite of you." She blinked back tears. "I deserve that," she whispered. "You deserve a lot more than that," I said. "But I'm too busy to give it." Then I turned, stepped into my car, and left her standing on the curb, framed by the flash of city lights and the wind that carried away whatever apology she'd been too late to give. The cost of revenge. For weeks, I replayed that night like a victory. I told myself I'd finally won, that power was the only justice left. But winning felt empty. At night, when the house went quiet, I'd catch myself wondering if she had somewhere to sleep. If she ate. I'd scold myself for caring. She made her choices, Lydia. She used you. Still, I remembered the way her voice trembled when she said my name. The line between power and cruelty began to blur. I donated more to charity, worked harder, expanded my foundation, all under the illusion of goodness. But it wasn't kindness driving me. It was guilt disguised as generosity. The mother in the mirror. One morning, during a meeting, a young employee, barely 20, came to me, pale and nervous. She'd made a mistake on a client's file, a small one, easily fixed. I snapped at her. My voice was cold, sharp, final. She flinched the way I used to flinch when my mother scolded me for wanting too much. When she left the room in tears, I saw my reflection in the glass. And for the first time, I saw her. Not the mother I'd sworn never to become, but the one I was slowly turning into. Sometimes revenge feels like healing, until you realize you've inherited the very pain you were running from. If this resonates, hit subscribe. The next part is where everything begins to shift. The breaking point. It happened on a cold November morning. I received a call from a local shelter, one my foundation supported. The manager said quietly, "Lydia, I think you should come here. We have someone who listed you as their emergency contact." When I arrived, I saw her, sitting on a cot, shivering, wrapped in a blanket that looked too thin for the season. My mother. For the first time, she didn't look proud or manipulative. She looked small. She'd lost everything, her home, her health, her illusions. When she saw me, she whispered. I didn't know where else to go. I stood there, torn between anger and something softer, grief, maybe. This was the woman who'd taken everything from me. And yet, here she was, with nothing left to take. I didn't say a word. I turned and walked out, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I didn't trust myself not to. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of her, frail, desperate, wouldn't leave my mind. For the first time in years, I asked myself a question I'd avoided. What if my revenge made me as broken as she was? The reckoning. The night I walked out of that shelter, I told myself I was done caring, done forgiving, done reopening wounds that would never heal. But silence has a way of echoing when you least expect it. For weeks after, her face haunted me, pale, trembling, so unlike the woman who once stood taller than her mistakes. I went through my days on autopilot. Board meetings, charity events, interviews, I smiled through all of them. But at night, when the noise died down, the quiet pressed against my chest like a weight I couldn't name. One evening, after another sleepless night, I finally picked up the phone and called the shelter. "Is she still there?" The volunteer hesitated, then said, "Yes. She's been keeping to herself. Doesn't talk much." Something in that sentence cracked the armor I'd spent years building. Without thinking, I grabbed my coat and drove across town. The visit. The shelter was dim, the air thick with disinfectant and weary hope. When I walked in, the woman at the desk recognized me instantly. "Room 8, she said softly. "She'll be glad to see you." Glad to see me. I doubted that. Still, I walked down the hall, the sound of my heels loud on the linoleum, until I reached the small door. I hesitated, then knocked. A voice, weak and familiar, answered. "Come in." She was sitting on the edge of the bed, wrapped in a faded sweater, staring out the window. When she saw me, her breath caught. "Lydia." For the first time in a decade, she didn't sound defensive. She sounded afraid. "You shouldn't have called me your emergency contact," I said flatly. I didn't know who else to put. Her honesty disarmed me. I wanted to be angry, but what I felt instead was exhaustion, a bone-deep sadness I'd carried too long. The truth beneath the blame. I sat down in the chair across from her, the air heavy between us. "Why, Mom? Why did you do all of it? The money, the lies, the credit cards? Did you ever feel sorry?" She looked down at her hands, trembling, thin. "You think I don't hate myself for it? You think I don't know what I did to you?" I said nothing. She went on, her voice fragile but raw. "I grew up in a house where women had two options: marry a man who could take care of you or hope your children would. When your father left, I panicked. I didn't know how to survive on my own. You were smart, capable, strong. I saw that, and I used it. I told myself it was for both of us, but it was really for me." Her eyes welled with tears. "And when you succeeded without me, it made me feel like the failure I'd been running from all my life." Something inside me shifted. I'd spent years thinking she'd stolen from me out of greed, but the truth was messier. It wasn't just greed. It was fear. It was generational desperation dressed as survival. That didn't excuse it, but it explained it. If you've ever discovered the pain behind someone's cruelty, that moment where anger turns into understanding, subscribe. Because this next part, it's where healing finally begins. The moment of weakness. She coughed, a deep, rattling sound that didn't belong to a healthy woman. Instinctively, I reached for her hand. It was cold, fragile, but she didn't pull away. "You shouldn't be living like this," I said quietly. "I made my bed," she replied. "And I ruined yours while I was at it." For the first time, she laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "I used to tell myself you owed me because I raised you alone. But the truth is, you raised me too. You became the adult I couldn't be." Tears stung my eyes. "Mom, why didn't you just say that before?" Because admitting it would have meant letting go of control. And control was all I ever had. In that moment, all my anger, the years of resentment, the late-night rage, the revenge, it didn't vanish, but it loosened its grip. What took its place wasn't forgiveness yet, but something that felt close, empathy. The choice. When I left the shelter that night, the air outside was freezing. I stood on the sidewalk, staring at the glowing city skyline, and realized something that terrified me. I had the power to repeat her mistakes or to end them. I could walk away forever, like I had before, and no one would blame me. Or I could help her, not as the desperate daughter begging for love, but as the woman I'd fought to become. So I did something I never expected to. I turned around, went back inside, and asked the volunteer at the desk. What would it take to move her somewhere safer? The new arrangement. Over the next few weeks, I arranged for her to move into a small apartment owned by one of my foundation partners. Nothing fancy, just warm, safe, and stable. I paid the rent anonymously through my company, refusing to let her know it was me. But of course, she found out. She always did. You didn't have to do this, she said one afternoon when I visited. I don't deserve it. Maybe not, I said. But I do. What do you mean? I deserve to stop carrying hate around like armor. She didn't reply, just nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. The mirror of healing. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, I began to visit more often, bringing groceries, helping with her medications, sitting quietly while she watched old shows. She stopped asking for money. Instead, she started asking about me. Do you ever get lonely? Do you ever miss home? Do you ever think about your father? One day, she said something I'll never forget. You know, Lydia, when you were little, you'd always try to fix everything. The broken radio, the leaking faucet, even me. I used to think you were stubborn. Now I think you were brave. It was such a simple thing to say. But it healed something in me. Words like sorry never could. Sometimes, forgiveness isn't about erasing the past, it's about creating a future that isn't poisoned by it. If that speaks to you, stay with me. The final part is where peace finally finds its way home. The first real hug. A few months later, on her birthday, I brought her a small cake. We ate together quietly. When I stood to leave, she said, "Wait." She reached out and hugged me. It was awkward, trembling, unsure. But real. "Thank you," she whispered. Not for the apartment. For not giving up on me. I held her tight. I'm not doing this for you, Mom. I'm doing it for both of us. And in that embrace, fragile, uncertain, but sincere, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a child. Not pity. Not guilt. Just love, finally clean, finally free of price tags. The redemption. When I think back to that night at the shelter, when I walked away and then walked back, I realize how small decisions stack into the shape of a life. Revenge had been loud. Redemption is quieter. It arrives like morning light, slow, steady, and impossible to ignore once it's there. If you're watching because you once believed love had a price, hit subscribe. This is the part where I learned the cost of keeping my heart closed, and how much more it took to open it again. Beginning with boundaries. The first thing I did before any kind thing was practical, I set boundaries. I refused to let compassion turn back into consumption. I would no longer be a revolving ATM for the woman who taught me to sell my future for her present. When I moved Mom into the small apartment I'd found, I set a clear contract with the social worker and with my foundation partner. Lydia would cover rent for 1 year, anonymously for the first 2 months, then openly with terms, small monthly repayments, if she earned any money, mandatory enrollment in counseling services that the foundation subsidized, and a monthly check-in with a social worker. It wasn't punishment, it was structure. It was adult love. When I told Mom, she laughed bitterly. "You always make things into a spreadsheet." "Because spreadsheets keep promises," I replied. "Promises without plans are just wishes." She didn't like the idea at first. Old habits resisted being retooled. But structure became her teacher. And while structure may not sound romantic, it can be the scaffolding that lets a person build something honest. Work, dignity, and small wins. One of the hardest things for both of us was to unlearn roles. For decades, I was the dependable one who erased discomfort. She was the woman who made needs into crises. Now we had to learn different ways to interact. The first real breakthrough came with work. I partnered with a local thrift store program that trained and employed women transitioning from shelters into stable work. I knew Mom could do it, not because she deserved it, but because everyone deserves the chance to be useful on their own terms. Asked Lydia to trust me. She did, and I didn't fall apart. That surprised me. At first, the store manager was wary. Can she commit? She asked me. I said she would, because I would help monitor and mentor her the way Valerie had mentored me. We set up a slow start, 2 mornings a week folding clothes, labeling, then greeting customers as confidence grew. I didn't hand her money for appearing to work. I paid her wages for work she actually did, proof that dignity comes from an exchange, not a handout. The first paycheck was clumsy, a single-handed envelope, a receipt stapled to a napkin. She held it like it was both a miracle and a threat. I don't deserve this, she said. I used to think money was how you bought love. Money is a tool, I told her. Love is something you show with your time and your truth. Today you showed me both. She cried. I cried. We both cried for different reasons, me for the years lost, her for the embarrassment of finally earning what she'd once stolen. If you're learning how to build healthy help, not rescues, subscribe. These stories are about repairing without enabling, and that distinction matters. Therapy and reckoning. I insisted on therapy, not to shame her, but to open a place for things that never had words. The first few sessions were combative. She'd sit with clenched hands and memories that had turned into excuses. I did what I had to do, she'd say. How else was I supposed to survive? The therapist, a woman named Mara who smelled faintly of chamomile and realism, didn't absolve her. She helped her see how fear had been the engine behind poor decisions. She assigned little homework, 1 honest journal entry a week, 1 phone call to a friend without asking for money, 1 grocery budget planned and followed. Slowly, over months, those entries changed from lists of excuses into lists of observations. I was scared, she wrote one week. I thought if I asked for help, I'd be weak. Another week, The best part of therapy was how it changed how she spoke to me. Where blame had been automatic, now there were pauses. Where entitlement once rose, now there was curiosity. What was it like to feel like your future was being taken? She asked me once, voice small. It was the most honest question I'd heard from her in 20 years. Public reckoning and private repair. Redemption in public is messy. People preferred the spectacle of my revenge era, the headlines, the dramatic speeches, the hard lines. But true repair happens in the mundane, sitting in a small apartment drinking cheap coffee, ironing coupons, arguing about whose turn it was to call the plumber. Still, we had to address the public ledger. My foundation funding had already been a soft power way to help others. I chose to add an explicit line item for family reconciliation programs, workshops for adult children and aging parents about boundaries, money, and dignity. We hired Mara to teach a module. The first cohort was small but fierce, for adult children, 2 parents, and a cascade of people learning to stop weaponizing love. At the first town hall, a woman in the back stood up and said, I use my daughter like she was an ATM. Her voice shook, and then she sobbed. Her daughter came forward and hugged her. 10 years earlier that scene would have been unthinkable. In that room, I saw the ripples of one private choice, mine, expand into a community conversation. The heart's hard return. Months turned into a quiet rhythm. Some days we fought like people who'd never fix all the past, other days we sat in companionable silence, knitting something that looked faintly like trust. The hardest moment for me came not when she asked for money, nor when she apologized, but when she asked me to meet the woman she'd hurt the most, a neighbor from years ago whose family had been bankrupted by one of Mom's emergencies. She wanted to apologize in person, no excuses, no justifications. I felt the old hot flash of anger, the voice that said no, you don't have to be the grown-up again. But I also remembered my vow, revenge had taught me power, redemption would teach me freedom. So we went. The neighbor, Sandra, was older now, steady, and skeptical. The meeting was awkward, then raw. Mom's apology was simple and honest, I took from you. I am sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. Sandra looked at her, then at me, and said, "You're not her fault, Lydia." She was. "But I see she's trying." Then she took my mother's hand. That small exchange was the kind of grace that doesn't erase pain but demands we act anyway. If you believe people can change, imperfectly and slowly, subscribe. This story is proof that redemption is messy, but still worth choosing. The Last Ledger, Repayment and Release. One autumn afternoon, Mom brought me an envelope. Inside were $500, the first money she'd ever handed me as actual repayment, not as a demand for more. She didn't make a show of it. She didn't ask for praise. She slid the envelope across the table and said, "I'm paying you back. Not because you forced it, but because I feel ashamed, and I want to make this right." I put the envelope away with both hands because the act mattered more than the amount. She continued to make small repayments, steady, with her paycheck. It wasn't enough to erase the credit hits or the stolen college fund, but money was never the true debt. The debt was the years of trust one had to rebuild for myself. Rebuilding took different forms: therapy sessions with my own counselor where I learned to hold anger without letting it become my identity, volunteer mentoring where I taught women to protect their finances, and the small, stubborn practice of seeing my mother as a whole person, capable of harm and also of regret. The quiet epilogue. Years later, we hosted a small event at the foundation, a celebration of graduates from our reconciliation program. Mom stood at the front, not as the woman who'd once commanded attention with manipulative drama, but as someone who'd learned to listen. She spoke for a few minutes about fear and how it had warped her life. When she finished, she looked at me and mouthed a single word: "Thank you." Not for the money, not for the apartment, but for the hard work of not letting hatred calcify my heart. I smiled and mouthed back, "You did the work." It was both true and generous. Final lesson. If revenge was a furnace, hot, fast, and dangerous, redemption is a slow kiln that fires the broken pieces into something useful. It softened the sharp edges of my story without erasing the marks. I never pretended the past didn't hurt. I didn't forgive to win approval or to soothe my public image. I forgave so I could stop being tethered to a person who once defined me by what I could give. For anyone watching who's balancing anger with the possibility of grace, you get to choose. You can armor up and stay right, which feels safe but hollow, or you can risk opening the door just wide enough for repair to begin. It won't fix everything. It will, however, free you to live a life that isn't measured by how much you carry for others. Final YouTube close, warm and firm. My mother used me for money. She blamed me for the failures she created. I used revenge to climb out, and then I learned to use compassion to build a more enduring bridge. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to know that healing is possible, messy, imperfect, and real. And one last thing, you don't have to carry every debt you inherit. You can choose your ledger. You can choose freedom.